You don't know what's out there.
That's why I would go.
Hi, and welcome back to Wild Dream, where we give you the freshest takes on the latest movies. My name is David.
And my name is Daniel.
And this week we have yet another very special guest, the specialist of guests. It is the Mother's Day special. The Mother's Day special here. And who better to be on the Mother's Day special than our very own mother, Mary Kimberlin. Welcome back to the show, Mom. Now, why is our mom here without saying a word to us?
Because as usual, I was ignoring you.
Okay, well,
She has learned to tune you out. So she's like, oh, yeah, he's talking. That's right.
right. I forget.
Yes, Mom, welcome to the episode.
Yes,
Not
Mom.
your first time, but...
Mom. Hey, Mom. She's still, I can't get her attention.
Okay, no, I'm here. Thank you. I'm here.
Yes.
Yes.
And the reason you are here is because we are doing a Mother's Day special. And today...
For the Mother's Day special, we have decided to let our mom choose the movie that we will be discussing today, and that is why today we are reviewing The Godfather.
Usually we all say that together. Do you want to join us?
Oh.
Our mom promised she listens to the pod. And today we saw
The Godfather. Yes, this is our mom's favorite movie, right, Mom?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's up there. But you have a long history of loving mobster movies in general, right?
I don't know about mobster movies per se. Well, actually I have. But anyway, yeah, no, The Godfather is my favorite movie. It has been for so long. And I've been trying to get y'all to watch it for the longest time. I'm glad that you guys finally decided to sit down and watch it. I mean, David, I think you saw it several years ago whenever you were a teenager, but probably didn't appreciate it as much.
Yeah, definitely not. I remember more about what we were doing when I watched it the first time and less about what happened in the movie, because we were renovating our house. We were like redoing the floors, and we had just ordered new furniture, so we threw out the old furniture, but then there was no furniture in the house. So I was sitting on a stack of hardwood floor that was piled up that was getting ready for the rest of the house, and I was like, okay, I'll watch this movie. I definitely think that, well, every movie I watch, I feel like is different before and after going to film school, so like that's a big part of it in general. But then of course, just being an adult, having seen other things that are similar to this, I think I appreciate it more now and actually understood what was going on and a lot of the complexities in it, especially like when it comes to like the politics of the movie. Because like, I've seen like Game of Thrones and stuff like that now, so I can better understand a movie that has 100 characters and they all are important and they all matter, whatever else. So this was definitely a much better experience and a much more memorable experience getting to watch it as an adult after finishing film school and having a better understanding of film in general. Dana, what did you think? I mean, this is your first time.
My first time ever. And it's one of those movies you can't avoid in pop culture. So obviously I know quotes and certain scenes and certain beats that are going to happen in the movie. I even know a spoiler for The Godfather Part 2, which I haven't even seen yet. Yeah, so there's some stuff that there was like 2 or 3 moments in the movie where I was like, oh, here's this part or whatever. I was shocked at how much I didn't know and hadn't been spoiled for me, so that was a big part. Like when we get into spoiler talk. Well,
it was longer than you expected it to be.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if y'all remembered that this was a 3-hour movie. Did y'all?
No.
Yeah.
Mom did? Okay.
Of course, Mom did, yeah.
So that was intimidating too, and I'd never even knew that. So that's not even the reason I've never watched it. It's just been this like thing that has always kind of been hanging around that I'm like, I'll eventually watch it. I hear it's one of the best ever, movies ever made. So I'm glad I finally watched it as well. And I also think it's kind of cool. We did a family viewing, so we had a little family movie time and watched it with the whole family. And family is a massive part of the theme of this movie.
That's true.
So that was a lot of fun too. But I'm glad I finally knocked this off of my list. Like, this is when you say, "Oh, I love movies and I like to review them and I like to go see them," and you go, "And I've never seen The Godfather," in the same sentence, a lot of people will probably discredit you pretty fast.
Yeah, like me.
And the thing is that people have been doing that to me for a long time for a lot of movies, and as I've watched more and more of them, I'm kind of like, ugh. I mean, yeah, sure. Now I've seen it. You happy? You know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like I remember, I tell people this all the time. Like I have seen every single Star Wars movie. I've seen all of them. Like, and yes, it took me a lot longer than everyone else. And when Disney Plus came out is when I was like, all right, fine. Now I watch it. Now that I don't have to spend money. And then everybody was like, you love it, you love it, you love it. And I was like, it's all right. I was like, yeah, okay, I've seen it. Shut up about it. Stop telling me to watch Star Wars. I've seen all of them. You guys can obsess about it. It's fine. Yeah. And like when I watched Chinatown for the first time, I was like, Chinatown, pretty good movie. I was like, okay, pretty pleasantly surprised. I think some of the writing was better than some of the filmmaking. You know what I mean? But it was decent. And and when I watched like Casablanca, I was like, you know what I'm saying? I was like not impressed by that one. So like a lot of times when you watch these older movies, you're like, okay, well, they don't really live up to the hype. This one really, I was like, okay, I get it. This one I fully understood. Like, oh, I now understand why people say this is one of, if not the greatest movies ever made. And like, this actually is a masterpiece and a feat of cinema, like through and through.
Yeah. So before we watched it, I kept thinking, what are they going to say bad about it? Or what parts are they going to get bored with or whatever? And because we were all watching it together, I thought about that with, Danielle too. And just like,
oh yeah, our sister had never seen it before either.
Is she going to pay attention?
She literally took a phone call during the movie though. I will say that.
Different things like that. But then when we were watching it, and I've seen it probably 10 times or more, I really wasn't paying that much attention to y'all because I was still enjoying it so much.
Yeah, you're too enthralled by the movie.
Now, do you think that this is going to be a gateway for us to finally watch like The Sopranos and Goodfellas and all these other mob movies there?
I mean, probably not because y'all just... It's going to be next Mother's Day whenever I make y'all watch another.
We get to watch one episode of The Sopranos a year until we finally...
But yeah, I was just enjoying it so much. But then at the end, to realize that all of you really enjoyed it, even Danielle, like I said, who was halfway paying attention, and understand your audience probably, they might know this or not, but Danielle and I really haven't been able to watch a movie with you two. I mean, since y'all were teenagers, because we watch movies way different, right?
Yeah.
So me and Danielle are there for the entertainment, and you guys are talking about the lighting and the shots and, the scoring and blah, blah, blah.
Film.
So,
Seminar.
So for us to all watch a movie that we all, actually enjoyed and everybody liked, like that was a good time.
Yeah, I'm glad that you had fun with it. It definitely was like we did like all full snacks and like full movie everything. We made some popcorn, and so it was a really fun night in general. And I think that you're right. It is tough. And I will say this: me and Daniel also know that about ourselves. Like and it makes it hard for us to want to watch movies with other people too. Although I will say it's interesting because usually when Daniel and I are showing someone else a movie that we love, we're the ones going, wait, babe, you did look at this part like this. And it was Mom this time who was like, y'all see that? Did y'all see that? Hey, pay attention. Hey, watch right here. Watch right here. And we're like, what? Whatever. So it was really cool. I think it was like a fun like little turnaround on us for us to be the ones who are, she's the one on the edge of her seat, and we're the ones that have to be paying attention to the details.
Yes, which I felt a little guilty because there were multiple times in the watching that I was like, I had to pause it.
Like, what's going on? Okay,
I was that guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, wait, who's this? When you have names like Vinny and Vano and Voni, I'm like, okay, which one's Vinny? Which one's Vinny? Obviously this is exaggeration, but I'm like, there's so many characters and names, and I'm like, who did what to who and why? Because there is like exposition in this movie that's pretty like almost looking at the camera and saying this character does this and did this, and I'm making sure that I'm clocking it because they do it early to make sure that they set up the rest of the movie and you know who's who and what they're doing. So I was really trying to make sure that I was following, because you mentioned Game of Thrones. Yeah, Game of Thrones is another show that I was like, wait, okay, let me make sure I'm paying attention. But they get to do it in 8 seasons, however many seasons, 8 seasons, so they get way more time to establish that. This only has 3 hours to get you in and out of a really complicated family mafia system.
Yeah.
So I felt kind of bad for being like, oh, who's who and what, and then y'all would clear it up for me and like, okay, let's continue.
So let's go ahead and get into this, and I'll just say off the top, this is not going to be the normal structure of a podcast, because we're not going to do a spoiler-free talk and then go through the entire movie. We're just going to kind of talk about this movie and what we really appreciated about it and what we loved about it, because we said that this podcast was always supposed to be just us having conversations about movies, and so we're going to kind of stick more to that today. There's not going to be a spoiler-free talk, so from here on, there's going to be spoilers. If you haven't seen The Godfather yet,
shame on you.
How dare you? Are you
what
kidding
the hell?
me?
You haven't seen The Godfather? What the heck? Duh, you have to see that,
dude. You are so dumb.
One of the greatest movies ever made. Have you ever heard of that?
You call yourselves a film nerd? Come on, man.
Yeah. But yeah, go check it out. It actually, if you are one of those people who was like us, where you're like, there's no way it's as good as people say it is. It is. It is as good as people say it is.
Me and Dave are on record on this podcast saying that we're always going to be trepidatious of older movies.
Yeah.
And I know that is like kind of dismissive, but again, it's just more of a technological thing of, well, they didn't have this and that. I'm the same way with a lot of music as well, where some of the music I'm more attuned to these days is very like shoegazy, and which is a lot of guitar pedals and new tech, and it's the same way with movies like others. So I'm always a little dismissive. However,
it's always Fugees and Funnies.
It's always Fugees and Funnies, but this is a legitimate masterpiece of a movie, and it holds up even this many years later. So if you haven't seen The Godfather, stop being an idiot like me. Don't wait till you're 30. See it ASAP.
And you don't have to go to film school to appreciate this. Our mom has been trying to get us on this for years.
Yeah, that's true.
So let's kind of get into this, because I do want to bring up something that you were just talking about the exposition in the movie and all the different characters and stuff. I appreciated so much in this movie that they did not insult the intelligence of the audience at any point.
Yeah.
They did not go back and show you what you made. Like at the end of the movie, we're going to jump around a lot. Like at the end of the movie, when they're, executing their master plan that they've been, setting up for the whole third act of the movie, they didn't like go back and show you clips of him going, well, so-and-so did this and blah, 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 did blah. It's like, no. They just expect you should have paid attention and you should remember that he said that, and I was like, okay, they foreshadowed the death of every character in this movie to a certain degree, which I thought was really interesting. I remembered who died in the movie, but I didn't remember how everyone died. And one of the other things that I thought was interesting, like listening to this movie, was how many things that we knew from pop culture, like memes and things from the movie that we see all the time, that people reference all the time, and then putting them in context of this movie. And so one of the first things I realized was all the time people like to use the phrase, make them an offer you can't refuse. They use this. I'll get this from people at my job, people at Arby's, when they, are trying to negotiate the price of a sandwich. And they're like, you know what? Yeah, we'll pay for one, but we got to negotiate. Make me an offer I can't refuse. And I'm like, that means me threatening to kill you, right? I'm like, I didn't realize that the context of an offer you can't refuse wasn't about having an obscene amount of money. It was, I'm going to kill you if you don't do what I tell you to do. And that's the offer you cannot refuse.
Yeah, it becomes a fun mantra in the movie once it starts to click. Like, it started to click for me, 20 minutes or so into the movie after they mentioned the first use of that. And I'm like, oh. And then when they use it later in the movie, I'm like, aha. It's like,
now you get it.
Yeah. And it's funny because it's such a, I don't know. This is a movie that reinvigorated my want to act. Like, I've talked about how being on screen acting is not like as much of a passion as voice acting for me, but this was a little, I was like, hold up, I want to be, because there's a character,
couple guys with our body types in
I was
here.
about to say, there's a character in the movie who's just a fat guy who just wisecracks, but like is really close with the family, and I was like, I would love to play that role. Holy crap. So yeah, this is a movie that really makes me want to act. And it also is a movie that makes me realize how limited I am at acting, because there's some genuinely incredible performances in this movie. There's not a single performance that I have a problem with, which is insane to say.
Insane.
Like,
yeah.
not a single, down to the side characters.
Yeah, that's even like considering the fact that this is an older movie where they are doing things like ADR and, you know, like, so like there are moments where there's lines being said, but no one's actually moving their mouth and like things like that. And at the very beginning of the movie, I was like, oh man, this is really whatever. And I was like, by the first 5 minutes, I was completely over it. I was so enthralled in the story that I was just like before we even get out of the wedding scene, I was already over it, you know? But
we did watch, it's probably important to mention too, just in case, like we did watch the remastered version of the movie.
Yeah.
So some of that might have been even more like egregious than it might have been in the actual cut. But
maybe, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it was definitely like, there are a couple of times in the movie where it's distracting and a little weird, but I kept keeping in mind, like, well, this is a different version than what was actually made, so maybe it's just making it seem worse. But yeah.
Yeah. But even then, it's like the audio was probably the only thing I had some issues with, but even like the design of the audio was fantastic. You know, so it's like, even though some of the audio sounds not as great, the design of it is great. And the way that they use silence and Foley and music and, you know, sounds of the city and like, you know what I'm saying? Like these ambiance, you know what I'm saying, that they put into a lot of the scenes was so impactful.
Sorry, I can't help but think of Mom 2 minutes ago just saying, you guys are always talking about the floobies and flobbies of the movie. And you're like, the Foley, I hear Mom start to snore.
But I will say this: there were a couple times that I had to ask our mom some questions. Like, one of the first questions I had was, I was like, "Is it just like a rule that like if it's your daughter's getting married and you're a mob boss, people can ask you for stuff?" And she was like, "I think people are just asking for favors all the time. Like that's like what he does. It's a tit for tat business in a way." Mm-hmm. But I mean, she's seen a lot of mob based stuff. I mean, you're a huge fan of The Sopranos as well. That was like your favorite show for a long time when we were growing up. So. It's maybe
another one that is also timeless. Like, I've watched the series multiple times, and I'm going to watch them multiple more times.
Yes, which I see that a lot from a lot of people that I admire in the business, who that's like one of their favorite shows of all time, and they always say like I can rewatch the entire series over and over and over, which is how I am with like The Office, which is obviously. Just the time period I grew up in, like that was the biggest, one of the biggest comedy shows. So it is. I know you said you don't think we're gonna watch that stuff, but I'm telling you, after this movie,
I'm really considering.
Really inspired.
I'm
to
not
watch.
joking.
Yeah.
After watching The Godfather and like having it be contextualized for me, now I'm like, maybe we should go watch it. Which, by the way,
maybe you should watch part 2.
I should also watch part 2, maybe part 3. But you know what? And I also need to watch Goodfellas. That was one that we talked about too. That I need to watch. But
Casino, I haven't seen that one either.
Maybe we should do a whole series of mob movies and then have Mom come on the show every time.
That would be the best series.
We're gonna have Mom on the episode.
Wait, Mob Mom. Oh, that's a serious thing.
Mom, and we can all wear our
fedoras.
Hats.
Fedoras. All the fedoras that we have. I've been waiting to use these dang fedoras.
Our cigars. We can have little Tommy guns.
Finally, I get to use my Tommy guns. I thought it was going to be a hit, but it sucked.
Oh, yeah. Don't forget, my mom's on the episode today, so David cannot cuss.
None of us can curse.
None of us can.
Mom,
except for
actually.
me.
She's allowed to curse. Yeah, that's fine.
I'm just saying the one most likely to is you.
What? What? Do you think that watching the movie sometimes gets a little bit changed for you when you watch other mob movies too? Like, or does this one still just like always rank above? Like it's always a league above.
Oh, it's always.
Yeah. Like everyone else is a cheap imitation, a wannabe.
Yeah. I mean, no, they're still good. They're
Right.
just not as good as this one.
Yeah. I think that one of the things that I feel like this was a draw for our mom because, when we were growing up, we had, I think, a healthy amount of fear for Mom. Like the typical, like, oh, Mom's pulling up and she told me to take the chicken out of the freezer and I didn't. So we start sprinting to the kitchen.
Put it in the microwave.
Or like we'll walk around a corner and then our mom will be there and we'll go, oh my goodness, you scared me. And she'll go, good, you should be scared of me.
Yeah.
Like that guy. Now you watch movies like this and you're like, oh, okay, this is her favorite movie, where there's a guy who is always the most feared person in the room at all times. I wonder what
But
they
also
draw.
loving and protective, and
That's true too.
just trying to be a good provider for his family. And
Yeah, so like one of the first moments that like obviously they kind of set the tone right for this guy being like really feared, because obviously, you know, there's a guy asking him for a favor, and just him asking him for a favor is a scary thing. He's like, you wanted to be my friend? He said, you don't want to be my friend, but now you need me. And I'm like, that's not bad, right? That's not bad, right? You're not offering me friendship. You don't offer me a favor. And you know what? I kind of love this moment though, this opening scene, because I'm like, bro, he really got him. He's like, oh, so when everything's going great for you and you don't need my help, you don't want to be my friend. You don't want to be associated with me. You think I'm a bad person. You think that I'm this and that, and you have negative opinions about me. But now that you do need my help, oh, now you're fine with it because you couldn't get what you wanted. And this guy's like, well, yeah. And he's like, okay, well, how about this? I don't want your money. I don't want your whatever. I want your friendship. And even not knowing the context of this movie, I was already like, that's a bad deal. You don't want to be in the debt of this guy at all. Like,
yeah.
You know, whatever. I was like nervous for this guy. And so like you kind of set the tone for like, this guy is powerful, you know, he's dangerous, but he's also like, you know, you can actually get help from him. He does have a lot of connections and power. And then like when he's talking to his godson, so this was like one of the first plot points that they bring up is that, you know, this is where you first hear the offer you can't refuse thing, right? They tell the story about how his godson was in a band and he was, you know, locked in a contract. He wanted to go do his own solo career. So they go to the band leader and they say, hey, we'll give you $10,000 if you let him out of the band. And he says, no, I'm not going to do that. So then they come back the next day, they put a gun to his head and they said, let him out of the band or I'll blow your head off. And he's like, okay, fine, I'll let him out of the band. He's like, here's $1,000. Thanks for making a deal. So that's the offer you can't refuse. Okay, here's your options. Take $1,000, let him out of his contract, or we shoot you in the head. And, you know, that's like, okay, well, now we're very well established with, you know, this Luca character who is definitely like a henchman kind of guy. And then we're established with what an offer you can't refuse means. And then he's in his office later. And he's like, yeah, you know, the thing is like, I really wanted to get this movie, but like this executive, like he really won't give me the role. And he's like, who? What's his name? He was immediately pissed. He's like, what's his name? Tell me his name. I was just like, I was already nervous for the guy immediately. I mean, he's like not even asking him yet. He wasn't saying, could you help me out? He just immediately was like, what's his name? And it was just kind of interesting to see like this like establishment so early on of like, yeah, this guy, when he wants something, he gets what he wants, and fear and intimidation are a very strong factor in his ability to manipulate people.
I will say that at first, Marlon Brando's performance, I didn't know how I felt about it early on. I was like, ooh, this is a little weird. I can tell that there's a younger man doing this, essentially, and it felt a little cartoony. It didn't click for me until he got to start acting actually dramatic instead of just this kind of conversational thing at the beginning. I think obviously the biggest contrast is the fact that he's quiet and he's soft-spoken and he's reserved and he's calm, but he's very scary and has a lot of power and so it's probably just me kind of conflating the two. But it was just so interesting to me how the performance grew on me as it kept going, and then I was like fully in. And I mean, the only time I actually shed tears in the movie was when he passed, like for real. Because by the way, as someone who's never seen the movie, I was like, they killed him off 20 minutes into the movie? What the hell? Like, I was literally like, no way. I was like, this really is Game of Thrones. Anyone can go. And then obviously it turns out that he recovers. I was like, oh, God, thank goodness.
Yeah, dude, they shot this guy 5 times in the back and just freaking... Shoot down, Tabari! They pulled up on him, man. And again, this was like a very subtle thing that like we weren't... Like they don't say this super out loud or look right at the camera and go pay attention to this. It's just a very subtle thing where his driver, they're like, hey, why are you here? Oh, the so and so called out. Okay, so you're gonna drive me around? Yeah. Okay, so then it's his son, Fredo, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Fredo driving him around, and then they pull up on him and he gets shot, and everyone thinks that he's, you know, probably going to die. He gets taken to this hospital, whatever. And later in the movie, they take the driver out into the middle of nowhere, and then they just kill him. And it's like, yeah, you were supposed to pay attention. You were supposed to have remembered that he called out that day, and so he wasn't there to protect him, and he was the one who put his life in danger. So guess what? You're getting killed now. Like they don't go like show you the clip of him calling out or whatever. It's like you just have to remember this. You just have to know that, and I think it kind of helps with the rewatchability of a movie like this.
I agree. Thankfully, I had mom saying, "Pay attention. Are you watching this? Are you watching this? Okay, it's going to come into play." You know, so that helped. But yeah, I do appreciate, and I don't want to stray too far from Marlon's performance, because when he finds out that Sonny dies, it felt like I was watching something I wasn't supposed to be watching. I felt like obviously this movie is extremely. It just it makes you kind of jump into the world, and it feels like these are real people. It feels like these are like legitimately real people right now on this planet that you could go and meet and talk to. Like, it is so real, and it's so you're very, very in the world. And so his performance when he finds out Sonny passed is too realistic to where it feels like I'm a voyeur in a weird way, and I'm like not supposed to be watching someone finding out that their son just died. And because it is so perfectly performed, because his character has established early on that he doesn't do the crying crap. He doesn't, you know, he's like, you got to be a man. It's his masculinity is a very important thing to him. And so you can see him trying to balance men don't cry with my son just died. And so it broke my heart to see his face when he is told Sonny was gunned down.
Yeah.
And it's so realistic that it freaked me out. I was like, this feels like a documentary now. I don't like this. This is like too real. And it's just a testament to how incredible this performance is. A performance that at the beginning, I was like, I don't really know if I like, you know, again, like you're doing your impression, you know, like it's kind of hard to understand what he's saying. And you can tell that there's just a lot of makeup and stuff done. So it's like, which obviously it looked pretty good. It's just like, still, you just know, obviously it's how movies are made.
And we've seen Marlon Brando in other movies.
Yeah, it was just so
look like that 100%.
So heartbreaking and sad. And then obviously his line, speaking of your memes, when he does say, "Look how they massacred my boy," that one got me too. And that's a literal meme these days. And instead of me going ha ha ha, I was like, oh man, this is sad. Like this.
I didn't even know it was a meme, because I'd have been like, how disrespectful.
Honestly, I mean, yeah, that's one of the things that is like. Speaking of Sonny, I mean, this is definitely something that I wanted to talk about. Was you always appreciate a good character arc in a movie, and I think that sometimes when people are doing writing, especially nowadays, you see this a lot where everyone in the movie has to have an arc. Everyone has to be different from where they started to where they end, And that was something that I appreciate about this movie, is that there is a primary arc for one character, and the rest of the characters are kind of stagnant, right? And it's like, well, yeah, like the whole industry that they are in has to change. It changes because this guy changes. And if everyone else has to stay the same in order for this guy to change. And once this guy changes, everyone else has to. So it's like this domino effect, or like a, cause and effect kind of thing. And so I feel like the whole movie, for when we talk about Michael, the main character of this movie, really, the titular Godfather and the rest of them, I'm assuming, this character Al Pacino, he is. Like the whole movie can be defined as before he gets involved and after he gets involved, right? And it's not exactly a halfway point, right? Because there is like this weird second act where he's not part of anything at all. But even in that second act, you can see how he's changed as a person, right? Like, so the beginning of the movie, he is just coming home from war. And they're saying like he's like a war hero, we don't really know what he did in the war. And, this movie takes place, I think, post World War II. So he just got back from fighting the Nazis, and then he's coming back to deal with mob stuff, and it's like, well, he just fought the biggest mob of all time. So, how scared could he be? But at the same time, he's like, that's my family, that's not me. Like, he literally says this to his girlfriend at the beginning of the movie. He says, that's my family, that's not me. And so he doesn't really want to be part of it. And then once his father gets shot, he realizes that, these people are never going to stop coming after our father. And if we want to protect him, we want to save his life, and he does love his father, he does want to protect him, then we have to help them. But obviously Sonny can't do this because Sonny's the hothead, and Sonny doesn't ever change. And, our other brother can't do it because he's adopted and he's not, he doesn't count, whatever. And so Michael has to be the level-headed one to talk to them about this. And also, this is one thing I didn't know either. The whole movie, the plot of the movie is that there's a gang that wants to start doing narcotics, and everyone's like, no, we don't do narcotics. We just do all the other illegal stuff. And so
sell narcotics, not do it.
Well, I mean, maybe a little bit of both.
Maybe.
But yeah, it's like when you think about like mob bosses and crime families, it's like, well, what's the crime they're doing? Like no one really knows, or no one really talks about it. So it's kind of interesting in this movie to be like, oh, what do? We control all of gambling and prostitutes and stuff like that, but not drugs. Like, we don't do drugs. Like, that's a dirty business. And if you do drugs, then the politicians and the cops and whatever, they won't be on your side because that's, they're not doing drugs. They want to do the gambling and they want to do prostitutes and stuff. But once drugs are involved, they're not going to be interested. So, that's the line. Every other mob family that's involved, they want to do drugs and they don't want to do drugs, and they're the most powerful ones. So they're, about to start this war. And so when you get to this scene where Michael has to go to this dinner with, the chief of police that is now involved with the drugs, and the guy who is, pushing the drugs, bringing the drugs and starting that business, it is like, when we talk about this movie being a masterpiece, like, that was genuinely one of the best scenes I've ever seen in a movie. That had and I remember the scene. I remember from when I was 13 and watching the scene. So I knew what happened, and I was still on the edge of my seat and my heart was racing.
Yeah. Right. I was too. And I've seen it so many times, but I think I hate to give y'all credit for this, but sometimes I do find myself like critiquing the acting a little bit more in different things. Again, it's not because of y'all.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Just kidding. But even in that scene too, like Al Pacino, like his acting was so good. Even when he was not speaking, his facial expressions, it was like his heart was pounding too. Like he was just like
he was
about
nervous.
To burst.
It's like this like combination. So it's like he's nervous because you can tell he's afraid of what's going to happen once this is done. But it's compounded with his anger, where he's like, these guys tried to kill my father, right, and he wants to freaking kill these guys so bad, and he just wants to get it over with. So it's like those two things conflicting inside of him, and it's so well portrayed without a word being said by him for like 3 whole minutes. He does not say a single word, and the scene will have your heart racing, and you're on the edge of your seat waiting to see what happens in this scene.
Yeah, it's kind of obviously I spoke about Marlon Brando's acting. It's like Al Pacino is exactly right up there with him. And so when you have two guys to carry a movie with this much talent, it makes for a good movie, obviously. And when you think about getting introduced to Michael at first with his combed over hair and his military uniform and his kind of shy, like soft spoken,
clean shaven,
soft, kind of a soft guy, just like I'm a sensitive, soft guy, to where he's at the final shot of this movie, you're like, this was the same actor the whole time. They
feel completely different.
The ability to pull this off, even in the middle of the movie when he's in the Italian countryside and now he's just like a shepherd living in, no phone, none of these cell phones.
Yeah.
just vibes, just vibing. Even that kind of portion, you start to see his character growth, and even that does not match up with who he is by the end of the movie. Still, it is still clear that there is a pre and post. There is a pre before he kills these two men, and there is a post, killing these two men. And I mean, he is so good, and I think you're right. It's not just the way he delivers his lines, or it is his facial expressions, the tics that he has, almost like Marlon with the scratching his face kind of thing. It's like these things that make the character feel so real, and the attention to detail is incredible with his actual, just the way he looks at a person. It's like that is so. That's film acting. That's graduating from this over-the-top stage acting to film acting. That is hard to do.
Very true.
And it's something I critique myself about a lot is when I see myself on screen. So I'm so jealous of this fool. But yes, this scene was... Y'all knew it was going to happen. I didn't. So you can only imagine. This was literally... It had to have been the highest my heart rate has ever been in a movie. Because... I thought that they kind of make it seem like maybe the gun is not where it's supposed to be. So I'm like, oh my God, what is he going to do? Then even when he does eventually, the gun is there. I'm like, wait, is he actually going to do it for real? And then I'm like, is he going to chicken out? Like, would it be better to not do it anyways? So my mind is kind of where his is. It has to be where it's like,
and he knows he doesn't have backup because we know they lost them on the road. They like intentionally tricked them to go into Jersey or whatever.
Yeah, and the thing that really amplifies this is the sound in this scene. So it's in the diner. It's just quiet,
completely quiet. There's like maybe some forks hitting plates and stuff.
Yes, it is so still and quiet. And then once he's in the bathroom, it starts to ramp up a little bit. He finds the gun, and they start playing. It's this shot from above and behind his head with him center frame in this really claustrophobic, bathroom. What's the right word for that, by the way? The bathroom's not claustrophobic. How do you say, I guess, a confined space? I don't know. That bugs me when I talk like that. But anyways, this shot is so powerful because of the addition of the sound that starts to play. It's this very chaotic, muffled, distorted, ambient sound that is... I'm telling you, it literally triggered a response of my body to go, be nervous, feel the weight of what's happening, feel heavy, and like it's happening. It's
can I
insane.
say, like, part of what made me nervous about the scene, I could pretend better than he can. Like in the scene, he's not good at pretending to be their friend. Like he's supposed to be putting up a front, like, oh yeah, I'm here to squash the beef and we're just going to talk business. But you can tell he's like pissed. And you're like, come on, dude, can you put on a better poker face than this? Like it adds to the anxiety for me. I'm like, dude, just clear your face, clear your RBF. And like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like nervous for him. Cause like, even when they tell him like, listen, you ask to go to the bathroom. It'll be even better. And he goes, I got to go to the bathroom. Is that okay? Like you can tell he's like rushing through it, and that kind of adds it to it for me.
Yeah, I think that in the diner scene, the part that I can justify is if he walks in there and he's like, "Hey, what's going on, guys?" It's like that's more suspicious to me.
Right.
If he's acting any different than he's ever acted.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying is like that's why it's like conflicting for me. I think that's what added to my anxiety. I'm like, I want him to perform better, but then also. Yeah, there's like he's on a really thin ice. He's in a dangerous position with dangerous people. Too different,
can't act,
exactly
somewhat changed.
He's got to walk calm. He's got to walk this tightrope until he can get to the moment where he has the control. And then when he finally does it, man, and then he walks out of there and the table just falls and they stay on the scene for so long, I'm just like, bro, this is brutal.
Yes, this film is perfect at letting stuff breathe when it needs to breathe, and it's also I really, really appreciated when they chose to use music. It is so perfect.
Yeah,
it is perfect when they choose to use music and choose not to, and so they do it really well. This scene was.
Masterclass.
This scene's up there for like just best scenes I've ever seen in a movie. I love the amount of eye candy in this movie too, for like just beautiful shots, stuff that you would make your phone background. I mean, it is so nice. The outside of this restaurant was gorgeous especially because look, I don't mean to flex, but I got a nice TV, okay? And it is a true black TV. It's not gray. So this shot outside of the car parked in front of Louis' restaurant or whatever, it is cinema. I mean, cinema. I kept saying to Dave, that's a beautiful shot. That's a beautiful shot. That's a beautiful shot. Because it's just so good. And so I'm actually...
The lighting they use.
You guys know what I'm talking about
scenes.
because I'm using the picture of the restaurant for the poster for this episode. So,
okay.
Yes, that I loved it. It's so gorgeous.
It also made me miss my PT Cruiser.
Oh, bro, really?
PT Cruiser. Are those even around anymore?
I saw one the other day. I was like, whoa.
Oh, wow. Throwback.
Do you ever like watch this movie and like think about like where you were when you first saw it? When did you first see this movie?
Yeah.
I don't even know. I really don't even know, to be honest. But I think I have liked it more every time I've watched it, I think.
Really?
It's been a couple of years since I've seen it. So, like I said, last night watching it, I almost wasn't paying attention to y'all because I was enjoying it so much. It was just so good. And because I have watched it, it's like one of those where it's almost like you see something different almost every time.
Yeah.
Like you, just like you said, like whenever the normal driver has called in sick. And so that was just a tiny little blurb, but it just meant so much. And then, of course, the whole plot with Sonny and the setup and how that, it is kind of early on, but then at the very end, you can see how it played out and all the different pieces and people that were part of it. And it was just like, oh, God, that's so brilliant.
Yeah.
It is.
Brilliant is not a word that I use. I mean, why would you? I mean, it's a strong word. Right?
Yeah, it's high praise. Brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, this movie is brilliant. The actors, the acting, the
writing,
characters. I mean, all of it. It is so good. Like, I'm probably going to go home and watch part 2 tonight.
I might start The Sopranos tonight. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
I'm going home and practicing my Italian accent so I can get ready. So
when they do a remake,
hey, we're gonna do a remake. Hey, we down for a remake. The Godmother. Hear me out. Okay, never mind. But listen. Yeah, I'm excited to dive into all this stuff because I'm telling you, I just want to. I want to be a mob. No, I don't.
No, but yeah,
Let me stop.
I'll tell you what. Yeah, one of the things that definitely like
I want to be Italian.
there are people who are like, man, these movies like they glorify these things or whatever, and I'm like, I think they do put it in a good context, and I can understand how people go, man, this guy's bad A, like this guy's really cool or whatever, but at the same time, you do see like. I think this movie did a good job of showing like the wives and the friends of these people and like how it impacts their lives and like showing like the Don like in him losing his son and like how hurtful that was and knowing that was always a possibility for him, or when Michael when after he kills these two men he has to be put into hiding. He's living on the countryside of Italy and he ends up meeting this woman and he asks to be introduced to her and they start going out with each other. They start falling for each other. He ends up getting married to her. He's thinking he's going to spend the rest of his life with her. Maybe he can take her back to America with him at some point. And then right like the day that they find out that Sonny has died, he's like, okay, I need to go back to America like right now. The two men who were hired to protect him his entire time out there set him up and kill his wife. And so it's just like, this movie doesn't make it seem like, oh, I want to be in the mob. I'm like, this sucks. Like, this is like, you were always on edge. You were always like, everything you do, you're in danger, And it's just like, this guy couldn't even like stop to go buy fruit. Like his dad couldn't stop to go buy fruit without two men coming up and gunning him down. Like there's always that in the back of your head. And so it's like, it kind of also contextualizes like why someone like Michael has to become who he becomes by the end of the movie, where he's like, he went from this, I don't want to be involved to, okay, I'm going to be involved, but I'm going to do only what I have to do, and then eventually he goes, what I have to do is all of the bad stuff.
Yeah.
Like he kind of realizes he's like, the only way to protect my family, the only way to truly have this power is to do exactly what my father used to do, which is I need to take out all of my enemies. I need to hold all of the power in my hand and I need to be in control. And so he comes back to America. He starts to take over the family business for his father while his father is still alive. And it's like they even had this moment where they sit down together, which I thought was kind of sweet, where his dad's like, don't forget about blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I already took care of that, Dad. Like, I already took care of all this. Don kind of says like the quiet part loud, where he's like, I never wanted you to get into this business. It was never supposed to be you. And he's like, I thought you were going to be a senator or, president. And he goes, we still have time. You know, he's like still trying to save face for his dad, but like, yeah, like he is a totally changed person by this point. The scene where he goes to Vegas to talk to this guy to offer him
Mo Green.
Mo Green, Mo problems. You know that?
Mo problems. Let me tell you what.
Which this guy, he's the second dumbest person in the movie to me. But he's one of the dumbest people because one, he plays his hand immediately. Dude owns a casino and doesn't know to keep a poker face and not show him your hand. Guy's literally like, I'm already talking to one of the other mob families. He's like, interesting.
Yeah.
You're already talking to them.
Yeah.
Good to know. It's like, okay, why would you tell him that, you idiot? And then he's like, I'm never gonna, you're gonna buy me out. I'm gonna buy you out. And then you hear, like, right before he's talking to Mo Green, they're like, well, you know, he's not gonna want to sell you the casino. You know, like he's not gonna want to, whatever. He's like, well, I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse. And you're like, and now you know the context. You know, this is like third act of the movie. You're like, oh, like he's like using his dad's line, and now he's like, you know what I'm saying? Like he's in it, man. Like he's really doing it. And so like this was the first, like when he's in this casino scene and he's talking to Mo, this is the first time that you really go like, oh my God, this guy is scary. Like Michael is scary now.
Yeah.
Like he went from the fresh faced young kid who's nervous and we're nervous for him and like, you know, we don't know what's going to happen to him to now like I'm nervous for everyone else when he's in the room.
Yeah. It seems like he's fully in control at a certain point in the movie where there's no way he won't come out on top. And so it's like, yeah, to go from that beginning of, oh, is this going to happen? Is this going to happen? To now feeling like this is going to happen. You know, it's like,
yeah,
it's really intense. It's amazing character arc, amazing character change. And I really love too. I love the different personalities of the kids. I like that Sonny had that same amount of rage and anger, but did not know how to not play his hand or, you know, to have a poker face. He was way too gung-ho. I'm going to immediately just react instead of thinking. Mm-hmm. He didn't think, he didn't pretend, he didn't, so when they first talked to the other mob family who wants to get into narcotics, wasn't it Sonny who spoke over his father?
Yes. So yeah, okay. so this was an interesting scene too.
Kind of a foreshadowing a little bit too. It
definitely is. So basically the Don tells the guy, he's like, listen, thank you for your interest, but we're not interested in this business. And he's like, well, you know, the Sicilians and the people who are still in Italy, you know, they want to do this and blah blah blah. And Sonny like talks over him and he's like, so wait, you could guarantee like protection? And then he's like, shut up. I'm sorry about my son. You know, he should never work. And in my head, I was thinking,
I spoiled my kids. Apparently, which I bet Mom was like, yeah, you know,
yeah, you know. She's like, my kids wouldn't talk out of turn, right, Mom? Anyway, so I.
Join our Patreon for $50 a month to see the face that Mom just made today when he said that.
Guess whether or not I flinched. Just kidding, Mom. But yeah, it was interesting because you're like, okay, well, he's mad at him for talking out of turn. Like he should never speak over his father. But then at the end of the scene, he goes, don't ever show them your hand. Don't ever
tell them what you're thinking.
Don't ever tell them what you're thinking.
Which is amazing. Which is advice.
great advice. Because then guess what? When they kill Luca, and then they kidnap one of the other kids, the adopted son, to tell him like, I know that you guys are interested in this. So like now, essentially, what the guy is thinking is, oh well, they're probably trying to do some other drug stuff behind our back, and if they're not going to get involved, then we're going to take them out. And so they have no hand to play now because he spoke out of turn. So like he learns this lesson like pretty early on, like this is the, you know, whatever, or he's supposed to learn this lesson early on. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But he is the one who can't learn. He can't, you know, change the way that he is. Yeah. And then Fredo,
rage and reactionary, and
yeah,
can't stay quiet. Reminds me of someone I know.
I'm doing the best at this.
So then Fredo, he is
well,
like...
if your sister did have someone beating her ass, I would hope that
honestly,
you would go beat his ass
that is
in
true.
The middle of the street.
That is, okay, when I said that Mo Green is the second dumbest person in this movie, the first dumbest person is the sister's husband. So the guy Carlos, who marries their sister, a.k.a. the Don's daughter in the beginning of the movie, we see a scene where we find out that he was beating her up because like, and again, very, very subtle. Okay. Very subtle. There's a scene where just before all the guys are done with the meeting, she's trying to ask him something. He goes, shut up and set the table. And she's like, okay. And then she goes and she sets the table. And then as they're eating dinner, they're talking about something else entirely. He tells her to shut up. And Sonny goes, hey, don't you ever tell her to shut up. Don't you ever tell her to shut up. And then the mom is like, hey, get out of it. Stay out of their business. And so it's like, it's setting all of this up. It's like,
now, if I had one critique, well, let's two. If I had two negative things to say about it, one would be that part, right?
the mom saying, stay out of their business.
Mom
stop
saying,
defending your sister.
Right. Because that would not fly. Second, the only other negative thing I would say about it is the crying kid. I'm like, shut up.
Oh, there is a baby who is crying in every single scene the baby is in. Every single time that baby is in this scene, they are screaming.
I don't like crying babies in any scene, in any movie, in any real life, in any restaurant, in any
Yeah, this was the teapot equivalent.
That's how I am with like smoke alarms in movies and TV. I hate when they go off in those.
Yeah, especially because my dog freaks out because she thinks it's a real smoke alarm.
Yeah, it's just so loud and it's so any kind of like alarm system going, like a house alarm.
Yeah,
I just hate that stuff in movies and TV. I'm like, shut up.
The teapot thing is overused as well. Someone putting a tea on the kettle and starts to whistle. I'm like, okay, we get it. You want to cause anxiety in the scene. It's annoying now. It's gone from causing anxiety. Like that's the thing is like you contrast like the crying baby with the the sounds of the trains in the scene with Michael in the restaurant. It's like, yeah, there's one way to do loud noises and convolution that causes anxiety. And then there's another way to do it that just makes me annoyed. It's not even, it's not even anxiety.
I actually did appreciate the amount of realism that they go for with all the child actors and actresses and stuff. Like they use actual babies. They don't have dolls and stuff. And the scene when you watch Dawn actually pass felt insanely realistic. It felt like they started filming and they just told Marlon, hey, go play with the kid, do your scene, and however the kid reacts, we'll keep it in the cut.
Yeah.
Right.
Like he was just playing around with the kid.
It literally feels like
the kid wasn't acting.
Didn't tell the kid that, hey, that he's about to die in this.
Exactly.
And there's no way. And it's probably like the fifth take, so he knows he's not dead, so then he's like just playing with him as if he's just being silly goofy.
Yes, and so it felt insanely realistic.
Also, just so sweet. Just this OG, mobster playing with his little grandson. It's so cute.
It is really, really cute, and it's also. I was like, oh man, he's finna die, isn't he? Because he just starts being all happy-go-lucky, and I was like, oh my god, he's gonna die, and I could feel it because. Finally, he's showing some personality. All the front of the mob stuff is gone. He's just him and his grandson being who he actually is and not worrying about any kind of appearances. And I was like, they're setting this up. This is too happy of a moment. And then sure enough. But the fact that the kid is just reacting by still playing with him as he's on the ground. He's like, get up, grandpa. I was like, I'm going to cry.
Yeah.
I'm going to cry. This feels I'm going to cry.
Do not cry.
And it feels like, they had a bunch of film ready and they were like, we're going to just film, kind of float around, do this scene.
Yeah. It kind of feels like the kids didn't have a script. There wasn't anything they were supposed to say. They could say whatever they wanted, And I think that was done really well. I agree. But yeah, the crying baby was very annoying, despite the fact that the babies cry. But yeah, I think that
babies be crying.
So like for Sonny's character, like this hothead character, when he finds out that his daughter or his sister was getting beat up on by her husband, and then he immediately goes to find him, and he just let's say he beats him up. This is the worst acting in the movie because it's the worst action. Like you can clearly see he doesn't even come close to making contact with his face. So like the blocking of this beatdown wasn't very good. And the other thing was it was like earlier in the movie, Michael gets punched in the face one time by like a 80-year-old man. It felt like, and then he has a bruised, swollen face for the rest of the movie. And in this one, Sonny wails on this guy, hits him in the head with a freaking trash can, and he's like barely even got a scratch on him. So I'm just like, where's the power level? Like how tough and how strong are these people? I don't know. But yeah, it was just like, it sets so much up for the movie, right? Because it sets up, one, the mom kind of foreshadows it by saying, stay out of it. I know you didn't like that, but at the same time, it does kind of foreshadow, like, hey, if you listen to your mother, who's always right, you'd still be alive. If you would have stayed out of it.
True.
But the next scene that we see of this is when they're setting this up. So they have a mistress calls the house, essentially tells the wife that, tells their sister that her husband's cheating on her. She calls him out and she starts having this manic episode. And it's like one of these things where it's like she is like acting crazy, but then at the same time as you're watching it, you're like, oh, she has been made crazy. Like, this guy is making her crazy, especially because he immediately gaslights her. He's like, what are you talking about? What mistress? And then she's like, why don't you bring your whore over here? And then he's like, maybe I will do that, whatever. And it's just like, man, this is such a awful and toxic and terrible relationship. I don't know what's going on here, man. I don't know why this guy is allowed to still be with her, but man, you are the guy beating up on the mob boss's daughter. What is wrong with your head? What in the world made you think that this was going to go well? And the fact that they only defend their sister in any capacity is when he sets all of this up to then beat her up so bad that Sonny gets a call, and then he's ready to go beat him up again. And then he gets stopped at this thing, and then they, ambush him, and they gun him down. And this was the part where Danielle was laughing her head off because he gets out of the car and they are still shooting him, and he's flopping around and whatever. And she's like, no, he would just sit in the car and go blah, blah, blah. And me and Mom are like, he's probably coked out of his mind. I mean,
I think it's what you spoke to earlier. I think Danielle is extremely correct. She is right. It is not realistic at all. It is melodramatic. But I think that what you said earlier is we were so invested in his character that I wasn't even thinking about the logic at the time. I was just like, oh, damn. Because it's very scary. It's just very scary to see that guy in the toll booth duck down.
And you immediately go.
Your heart goes, no. So it's like, it's just such a good way to set this up. And it's so brutally honest and fast and quick, and there is no dun 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 dun. There's none of that. It just happens. Boom. This is how this happens, and so it's so real. And that, I wasn't even thinking about the logic of like, So it's like it's a completely valid critique, but even then, I don't know. I didn't know what was so funny about it. I was like, it's not like funny. It's just like, wait, how would he even get out of the car? That's kind of what I would expect. She thought it was the funniest thing she's ever seen in her life. So.
Yeah. When Daniel says that this is one of the hardest she's ever laughed, I'm not joking. She couldn't. I think everyone staring at her made her then start laughing uncomfortably.
I thought Daniel's neighbors were gonna start banging on the floor or something.
Yeah.
It was. So hey, everyone sees movies differently. Okay. Danielle thinks murder's funny. I'm just saying.
Yeah, Danielle thinks that a main character defending his sister and getting killed for it is so funny.
Yeah.
But no, it was definitely, I think, it's one of the more tragic moments of the movie because it's like, you see it coming, and then not only this, but he also foreshadows his own death as well, which, like I said earlier, everyone foreshadows their own death. It's the way that Sonny does this is when they are planning what they're going to do to kill the guy who's, bringing the drugs here and the police chief. Michael ends up being the one to kill both of them. When they're planning to do that, Sonny's like, well, why don't we just wait until he pulls up in the car and we just blast him? And then they go, well, you don't know who's going to be in that car. And like, that's their justification for it, whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, and I was like rewatching the movie. And again, this is one of the few scenes I remember was Sonny getting killed and how he gets killed. So I was like, oh my God, they just foreshadowed how Sonny dies. Like, whatever.
Yeah, it's like, to Mom's point, when you rewatch the movie, you get more out of it. You're like, oh, I didn't catch this, I didn't catch that. Which that happened to us with Hereditary, which we saw recently, as we mentioned. So, yeah, again, Mom had told me before that scene was coming up, pay attention, pay attention. And so I was locked in. I was locked in, and I was ready. And then I was like, oh man.
You know what? And so talking about the other brothers in the movie, you also have the adopted brother whose name is
Tom.
That's why I was going to say that. It's Tommy. He is the attorney, and he is like the right-hand man of their father. Just very good with the communication and kind of making deals with people. And he's very soft-spoken, for the most part. He has his moments of anger, just like all the brothers do at certain points. But, they do have their moments, and he for the most part, it's like he feels to me like a no man. like, you know, like you heard the term a yes man, a guy who just goes along with whatever. He's the no man. He's the no, don't do that. No, don't do that. No, don't do that to everyone throughout the whole movie. You know, it's just like he's kind of like the voice of reason. But then at the end of the movie, it becomes like really crucial to his character. And I literally said, I was like, because there's a point in the movie where they like quote unquote demote him, you know, whatever. And I'm like, I feel like they kind of do this because everyone keeps asking him for favors as if he's just going to go and tell them what to do. And, you know, so it's like, it's not only that he says no to the Don sometimes, and he says no to Sonny, and he says no to Michael. It's also other people go, well, you tell them that what we want is blah, blah, blah. Or, okay, you got to help me out with this, man. I really need you to talk to the Don, whatever. And he goes, no. To every single one of them. He is the no man. He is the voice of reason, and he is the realistic of the bunch.
He is. I like how he doesn't have a lot of dialogue in the movie. He doesn't get to talk much, but he's very sharp. He's just always on his toes. And when he finally does get an extended period of dialogue, it's when Michael's ex-girlfriend just randomly shows up to their location, and she's like, hey, where is he? And he's like, we have no idea. We don't know where he's at. And she's like, well, can you just give him this letter? And he goes, look, if I take that letter, that means that I'm admitting that I know his whereabouts, which I don't. So listen to this. He's literally so smart and always thinking about any possibility of legality that he's just on. He's on. And I loved his character. But again, that's why I say when I really appreciate the difference in the personalities of the brothers because it makes this really awesome portrait of Michael turning into Don. Of being, he's the chosen one. He really is he's the one that the Don didn't want in the business, and he's the perfect one for it. He's
partially because he doesn't want to do this.
Yeah, so he's like, it's awesome to see that, but it is really cool and it feels realistic that you wouldn't just have 5 sons that are all amazing and perfect. I like that Fredo is a doofus.
Oh yeah, Fredo's the worst, dude. He fumbles his gun when his dad is getting shot at, like, and then he can't even back up the family with the casino business, and like it felt intentionally comedic to me that the next time that we see him after he goes to Vegas, we see him and he has a spray tan now, and he's got his hair up like, you know, wannabe Elvis. Like, it is so with
funny.
His giant forehead and his male pattern baldness.
His over the top flashy suit. It's just like, I felt intentionally comedic to me that he's like, typical Fredo, come on, man. And because he is this, like, he's not even like a runt. He's just he's a bozo. I mean, he's just a really comedic. He wasn't even in the race for becoming the Godfather. He wasn't even up there in the choices. He's kind of a class clown. Knowing that he's a class clown, he would never be good at actually doing any of the important stuff here. When they go to Vegas and he goes, weren't you the one roughing up my brother? It's like, he's still, like, they still stand up for him. They still back him up no matter what. Does not matter. They're like, this is my brother. Take it or leave it.
That's one of the best lines, because I could so relate to it too. Like, that's his big brother, right?
Yeah.
Fredo is Michael's older brother.
Yeah.
But he's, one of the best lines I loved so much was like, you're going to straighten out my brother?
So the context of this is...
like, you going to do what to who? No.
Yeah. When Michael is in Vegas and he's talking to Mo Green, and Mo Green is like, oh, you know, you don't talk... He basically thinks he has control of the situation. Michael calls him out for the bad things that he's doing, and he's like, also been hearing you've been out here roughing up my brother in public, like in front of people. And then even Fredo is like, nah, man, it wasn't like that. Like, you know, like, we're still good friends. You know, he had to teach me a little lesson or whatever. He's like, yeah, he was banging my cocktail waitresses. I can't just let bad business happen like that. I had to straighten him out. And then he just cuts to Michael, and Michael goes, you had to straighten him out? You had to straighten my brother out? And I just, like, my heart drops. And I'm like, is he about to kill him right now?
Yeah.
Like, I was like, oh, my God. Like, I got so scared for him so fast because it was just like, how dare you talk about my brother like that?
I could almost, it was so relatable because, you know, I have older sisters and we haven't always got along, but I'm going to be the only one. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can talk bad about my sister, but you ain't going to.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It makes me think of me and my siblings' relationships. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if David's like rambling or something and I'm like, yo, chill, or be quiet, or you know what I'm saying? Like, hey, you're talking too loud, whatever. If someone else does that to him that's not in our family, I'm like, whoa, watch the way you talk to him.
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think I think that's established through all of us. And so it's like I talk to him like that. I tell him this and that. I can talk to him like this. I can tell him this truth. I can tell you don't say a word. Don't you ever talk to him like that.
Right.
You know, it's like, that is, so the fact, you're right. That is a bar. This like, you're going to straighten my brother out. Like that's like, it's just, you could hear a pin drop. Like,
and then like he has to go to Fredo at the end of the scene. He's like, I don't care. He's like, I don't care what you think. I don't care what you're doing. Do not ever take the side of anyone not in this family ever again.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's like, and it's crazy because like that moment, that's Michael straightening Fredo out. He doesn't have to beat him up. He doesn't have to make a show of it to everybody. Michael just straightened Fredo out. That's his responsibility, not yours. And that's how you do it, not the way you did it.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, it kind of comes into play like immediately after. So yeah, that scene is just like, it is one of those moments where, because I think like what you said throughout the movie, all of these characters are defending each other. You know, even Tommy, when they say like, oh, Michael should be the one to do this thing, like even Tommy's like, no. Like we never wanted him involved in this. You know what I'm saying? So they're all protective of each other in so many different ways. And then Tommy tries to protect Sonny by telling him not to be such a hothead, and they, you know, calling him out like, this is bad. You know, this is what's going to happen if you go out and you're going to start a war and blah, blah, blah. You know, it's like, it's, you know, all from a place of love. Like you can tell, like, and you can tell like the Don like kind of instilled this in them, like, you know what I'm saying, this protection of their family in so many ways, because even just the way he handles his godson, you know, because, which by the way that comes into play, everybody heard the horse head thing. I remember the horse head thing, and I think Daniel knows about the horse head thing because this is a very famous scene where the guy wakes up. The context of this scene is that's the guy who was not going to give his godson, the part in the movie that he wanted, that we were talking about earlier. And
which I thought was funny too, that the reason he won't give it to him is because he's like, he stole my girl. And this guy's like 70. I mean, he's like super old. This guy's like
70, and this guy's a famous singer, and he's great looking. It's like, yeah buddy, he was gonna, he stole everyone's girl. Like, I don't think you're personal.
Take a number, pal. Yeah, I'm like, dude, really? This is your
even
view?
when he was explaining it too. Even again, the acting and the scenes and stuff. Even then, he was like so emotional about it, just so into it. Let me tell you.
Yeah. And it's like, it's funny too, because it's like they show the horse earlier in the scene. Like he like is showing Tommy around, and he's like, look at this horse. And then he tells him how much he paid for the horse. Now I'll tell you, I had an inflation calculator up on my phone. Which, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, I did that for 1972, which was when the movie came out. I wasn't even doing it for the time period of the movie, which was 1940s. So in 1972, he says, yeah, I paid $600,000 for this horse, which would be a $3.5 million horse in today's money. And they cut its head off and put it in his bed. And so it's just like, everything in this movie is kind of like over the top, and it's just like they really show like they will go to extreme lengths to, you know, help each other out, even for something as, you know, trivial as a part in a movie. Yes,
it was very impactful too, because he has a bunch of horses, and he's saying that this specific one is not for sale, essentially, and he's saying like, we're keeping this one. This one's special, and then that's whose head, you know. And I actually wrote down too that I wanted to mention how insanely good the horse head prop looked. Like, again, another thing where I was like, this looks too realistic. This is too realistic. I'm uncomfortable. Like, it was very jarring. You know, animal violence is intense. So it's like, oh my God, this is messed up. And that's the only gore in the film. Is
pretty much. Well, I mean, the shot in the head is pretty, I guess not that gory. It's mostly blood.
Just violent and blood, which I was going to bring that up too, is how well they do this. Like, they don't shy away from the violence at all. It's bang and then blood. It's so intense, and
even the Don has blood coming out of his suit when he gets gunned down.
Yeah. So I like it because if you're gonna tell a story about the mafia and the mob and crime and violence,
you need violence.
Show it. Yeah. You know, let us see how bad this is, and it's intense. So,
and it makes me kind of like I wonder how people's perception or reaction was to this movie when it first came out. Like, were people like, oh my God, this is the most violent movie that we've ever seen? You know, like, what was the reaction like that?
Yeah, the 70s were when that started. You know, think about Taxi Driver was in the 70s.
Oh,
too.
yeah,
Like,
that's
that
true.
was messed up. So this was definitely. I've always kind of thought, just from the limited knowledge I know of movies in terms of actual studying them and stuff. It's like I know that the 70s were a big part of pushing the boundaries and moving stuff forward with that kind of stuff, like censorship and all that. So.
Do you know how young you were when you first saw it? Were you old enough to have seen that much violence?
Yeah.
I was an adult already.
Okay.
Good.
Right.
And
'Cause
you
I
waited
didn't-
until we were adults to show us the movie,
right.
because you would
It
not show us a
wasn't-
movie
I
that
definitely
violent.
couldn't have seen it when I was young, like whenever I watched all of the, Friday the 13th and the Nightmare on Elm Streets and the...
Yeah, those were totally fine. This
Totally fine, but this, yeah. I wanted to mention too. I really have. We talked about the scene of the diner scene. I think the best filmmaking in the entire movie is the baptism scene.
Oh yeah,
This is where
this is the climax of the movie.
It is. It's where every aspect of the movie is clicking on 100%. Because
So put it in context for the people.
I want to say too, like before we even get into it, something we said previously is that Timothy. We talked about Timothy and his editing skills, and you were saying that a good editor is something that you'll never notice, and that's the point.
Yeah.
It's like this whole movie, I wasn't thinking about the editing because it just flows so well. It's a 3-hour movie, and I was not bored at any point. So
Hey, they do fade to black one time, and I was like, whoa.
So
Just kidding.
So this is where you get to have a little bit of flashiness in the editing, where it's like you get to see what's happening and appreciate it for what it is. But essentially, Michael has hatched a plan to kill each and every head of these rival families. Yeah. So he has found out that who the traitor is. Don Corleone told him, whoever is the one that tells you and sets up the meeting for Banzini is the traitor. When this happens, he's like, okay, found the traitor. I see kind of what their plan is. Here's my plan. Check this out. We're gonna kill every single one of these people before that meeting can even happen. Do you understand me?
And the person who set up the meeting is going to get killed.
Yep.
And anybody who was involved in setting up my brother is going to get killed.
Yep.
And just everyone
who has done me wrong
or has set up the Don.
Yeah.
All of them. All of them.
And after the father had made this pact or this promise with the other families of I am not going to go after
Yes.
you guys. You're not going to get revenge from me.
Yeah.
And then almost as soon as he is not there anymore, he's passed away. Michael's like, yeah, I didn't make that promise. Though.
Dude, I did not even realize that until she just said
Yeah.
this. Yeah,
And
the
that-
Don
when
stands
you
up
talk about that, when you start talking about that scene or that part of the movie with the baptism, I'm thinking that I'm hoping y'all are catching it. You know what I'm saying? I'm hoping y'all are watching this and you're catching it and you're putting those two things together where it's like, well, he said he wasn't gonna.
And now I'm the Godfather.
Right.
I'm literally becoming the Godfather right now.
Now that was my dad's promise, okay? But I ain't him. So.
Now I am him,
it.
but I'm not my father.
Yeah.
I'm him.
Yeah, so I mean, you're right. Which you can feel that shift. You can feel I think they kind of set it up really well too before Don passes with his kind of like you had mentioned, Dave, where he's just like, oh, don't forget to take care of this, and he's like, Pa, I already took care of that. So it's not only this like, look, I got everything under control, but it's also a little sad. It's like it sounds like maybe his dad that old age is getting to him. He's not as sharp, which his dad already admitted defeat to. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
His dad was already like, hey, Michael, anything you got, ask Michael. He's running this now. So it's like that you felt that torch being passed.
Yeah, even Tommy tells him that, which you can tell Tommy, like, he loves to not answer people. Like, that's kind of like what I was saying. Like, and like, they even go to him like, Tommy, I mean, you would know, you worked with the Don forever. And he's like, well, no. He's like, because it's like, you gotta understand, if he's the Don's right-hand man, well, the Don has already told everybody, listen to Michael. So
Right.
now
But
even
even
Tommy
then-
is saying, listen to Michael.
Even then, Michael didn't act on that revenge. He could have. He didn't. He waited until his father passed away, so that his father's word and promise, wouldn't be broken.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's respect, it's integrity, but I like the fact we've talked about this during the Dune episode of we like this, like, all right, F tradition, F this is the way things have always been. Here's how we're gonna do it now. Listen up, and that's where this moment comes in, and he's like, this is masterpiece filmmaking, because the way that they do this is he says. They start hatching these plans, and we're going to go do this and we're going to go do that. This is irrelevant to the killing off all the heads of the family. They start making plans where they're going to travel, where they're going to go, blah, blah. And he goes, we're waiting until after the baptism. After the baptism, we'll start all this.
Yeah, he's like, after the baptism, we'll go to Vegas, and
we'll go to Vegas.
And he's like, oh, so they want to meet with you. He's like, okay, well, I'm getting my sister's getting her baby baptized. I got to go to that, and then after that, we'll meet. So they start setting this up, and then even the in the scene where the father, the Don is telling them, like, I'm not going to do any vengeance or any revenge. He says, however, though, at this time when he's at this meeting, he's making this promise. Michael is still in Italy. He's like, but I want to bring my son back here, and I want my son to be brought back safely. And he's like, and if something were to happen to him, where blah blah blah, he lists off like a couple of ways that people could die, and some of the things that he says is what Michael does to these people. So like he even it's like he's just rattling off ideas of how somebody could get killed. He's like, if he were to get whacked by doing this or by doing this and it's like he just got all these methods off the dome. And then it's like we even called out he didn't even really know who set him up, right? Like who set him up to set Sonny up even, and what's funny about it is like the guy in that scene calls himself out. Like he still didn't really know who it was that set Sonny up, and then this guy's like, so you're not gonna go after the dude who killed Sonny, right? Like you're not gonna go after him and his family and kill him or anything like that. And he's like, I don't think so. Why? He's like, I just want to make sure that you're not gonna go after that guy. Like I think if we find out who did it, you should just forgive him and walk away. And he's like, okay. We're all like, brother, you are just calling yourself out so hard right now. And then of course, when Michael goes and then gets his revenge on everybody, he doesn't just get revenge on all the 5 heads of the family, but he has the meeting with the his brother-in-law as well at the end of that movie. Of course, this is after the baptism scene. Sorry, I didn't mean to push on from what you were talking about.
No, you're good. Yeah, just this plan happening. It's just the editing choice that I really appreciated is there's two. I say 2 scenes. It's multiple scenes, but there's 2 things happening: the baptism of the baby, Michael becoming godfather to this baby, and then them killing all the heads of the family. And they are intercutting between each scene, but the only audio that they use is, other than obviously the sound effects of what's happening, the only audio they use is the baptism, is the priest speaking. So it's just poetic, and it's beautiful and insane and eerie and
not to mention they are literally when you are getting to the point of the actual murder, because like you said, it's showing setup too, people putting on fake costumes and walking up a flight of stairs and this guy being in a vulnerable position or whatever it is. And when we actually get to the murders is when the priest is like, do you renounce Satan and all of his demons and all of his bad deeds? And he's like, yes.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to. It's just, you're getting this setup, you're getting this eerie narration from the actual baptism that's happening, and you see, one of my favorite shots of these, they trap a guy in a revolving door and kill him. They do
savage.
But one of my favorites was how Mo Green went out. Mo Green is getting a massage.
This was my favorite shot
and
in the movie.
A guy walks in and he's like, "Who is that?" He puts his glasses on, looks up, gets shot right in the eye. The eyeglasses crack, and then blood just starts pouring from his eye. I mean, just awesome. And it's like, wow. And so to go from that extreme violence to cut back to Michael's face, facing the priest, of this really calm, just stoic is a good word. Yeah, it's just this but it's almost a little intimidating, just staring at the priest, and the priest saying, "Do you renounce Satan?" And he says, "Yes." And it's poetry because he is literally getting cleansed for the, it's almost like he's getting cleansed for the dirty deeds he is currently committing.
Yeah.
Right.
So it feels poetic that he's like, after the baptism. And I think there is a part of him that actually does feel like this will cleanse me a little bit. I think he knows somewhat that, this is not what my father have wanted, but, so I think he does feel a little bit of guilt, even though he knows it's the decision he wants to make. So this is the epitome of masterful filmmaking, this cutting back and forth.
And you know what? I like that
So
Michael
good.
is like that's part of like Michael's arc, right? It's like at the beginning of the movie, he doesn't want to be a part of it. And then towards the middle of the movie, he's like, I have to be part of it. And then at the end of the movie, he's like, I have to do more than what my father did. And I think that's kind of a theme that we see in a lot of mob movies and a lot of mafia, like even SOA to a certain degree is like, I have to be somewhat more brutal than these guys were. I have to defend our family more than our guy did because, whatever, like, if you're Michael, from your perspective, you're like, well, what you did got yourself shot and it got Sonny killed. Like, I can't take those chances, And I think he has to kind of take in what everyone is bringing him, like what his father wants him to do, what Sonny wants him to do, what Tommy wants him to do, what his wife wants him to do, and kind of contextualize all of that because like you say, it's like, it's what he wants to do. It's like, well, yeah, like he knows, like even his father didn't want this, even his father didn't want to, break the peace and start a war or whatever it is. But it's like, yeah, well, you can't just walk around in fear all the time and expect that all these people are just going to be friendly all the time, And he's like, I'm not going to let them get me before I get them. And he's like, if they're going to set up a meeting to kill me, all right, well, then I'm going to kill every single one of them.
They going to get got before I get got, and we going to get got together.
Straight up.
I mean, it's like, yeah, when all these people like started getting killed, our mom was just like, wah, 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 wah. She was just like so excited to see all these people like get what's coming to them. Like they thought they had it all figured out, and they thought they were on top, Yeah,
it's just awesome. It's brilliant. Like you said, it's just, this is what movies are made for. It's to do stuff like this. This is what the medium is for. This is poetry, visual poetry. And the feeling that I felt during that scene is just, wow. Like, it's just elation. Like, you're like, this is what this is all for, man.
So even at the very end, right, when all the little pieces start to fall together with Carlos, the brother-in-law, even that was so like enjoyable for me to watch you guys kind of put all those pieces together, but not just y'all, but like Danielle, okay? Because we know, Danielle, she's not watching it the same way y'all are, right? Mm-hmm. And so for her even to be like, oh yeah, and then just be like happy that, all these little pieces are being put together and how this is how it ends up and this is how it was set up, and this is all the people that were involved and everything. It was just so fun to watch y'all watch that play out and how it ends up.
Yeah, I mean, even Danielle was like, she was very enthralled by the character who sets the meeting up, the one that his dad tells him, like, this guy's a traitor, is because they're like, hey, yeah, so we're all going to go to that meeting that you set up. He's like, yeah, but you're going to go with these guys and I'm going to drive separate. And he's like, well, you can't drive separate because then it would mess everything up. He's like, yeah, I'm going to drive separate. And he's like, oh. And like he realizes he's about to get killed. And he's like, is there anything you can do? Is there any kind of pass I can get?
He's begging Tom.
He's like, can I just get a, can I get a pass? And it's like, we've already seen Tom say no to the last 5 people who asked him for a favor. So we already know how this is going to go. It's like kind of sets up his like mentality. He's like, nope. He's like, because this guy's like, it was just business. And he's like, right, this is just business.
Yeah.
It's not personal. Sorry. It was just business to you. It's just business to us, brother. You got to get in the car.
Yeah.
And so like,
which I love that they do throughout this movie as well.
Yeah.
And just playing this game. Oh, it was just business when you shot my father. Okay, cool. When I kill you and blow your brains out, it's just business.
It was just business for us too. So, Yeah, and like Danielle, I think she was like really enthralled by that part. And she's like, man, that's like a hard, like his reaction to it, and just kind of knowing, like admitting defeat and just knowing there was nothing he could do.
Yeah, she had a good observation on that. She's saying like everyone else they get killed unexpectedly in this movie, and she's like, this is the guy that knows he's about to get killed. He has to accept his fate, which is intense. Like, oh man.
Yeah, and then Carlos.
Which Danielle, right before the Carlos scene, I mean, it's literally seconds from appearing on screen. She's like, "What about the guy that was beating their sister?"
Yeah, and then he pulls up to Carlos, which I was like, okay, Mom's got to love this, because Danielle said this too. So he calls Carlos out. He's like, you have to answer for Sonny. He says his real name, his full name. I forget. Santino. He's like, you gotta answer for Santino, and he's like, what? I don't even know what the heck you're talking about. And he's like, come on, man. He pulls up this chair, and again, just the framing of this, the lighting, the like top down lighting where he's just like cast in shadow, and he's wearing the fedora, and it's like they actually made fedoras look cool in this movie, and it's like, how is this even possible? And he's just like sitting there, and he's so just like calm, and he's just like, he looks down on everybody, like everyone kind of like hunches, like with Carlos like being hunched over and like cowering in a way. He's just like really just feels really strong in the scene, and so like everything is so intentional. You know what I'm saying? The blocking, the lighting, everything, and he gets him to admit who he was working with to set up Sonny, and then he's like, well, listen, I'm not gonna make my goddaughter fatherless. He's like, and you're the wife of my or husband of my sister. So, but you're out of the family. That's your punishment. You don't get to be in the family anymore. You're on a one-way ticket to Vegas. You're gonna take care of the casino that we built out there or whatever that we bought. And you're done. Like, there's no more protection. There's no more whatever. Like you're done with us. And he's like crying or whatever. He's like, okay. He's like, when you leave, I'll call your wife. And then even Danielle was like, man, she's like, he gets off again. And then he gets in the car, and they murder him.
They strangle him to death.
They strangle him to death.
And who gets to strangle to death? The guy that I should have played in a movie.
Hey.
Yeah. He might just be the chubby, wisecracking guy, but he's the muscle too. Don't forget. But yeah, you're right. It was so satisfying. This kind of cat and mouse, like playing. I liked too. I just loved his performance in this, because it's the most he mirrors Don to me in this scene, because kind of like how the Don in the beginning of the movie was talking to the guy asking for a favor. It's just this very calm. He's playing with a cat. It's like, it's just very calm. He does the same thing here. You can tell he's filled with rage for knowing that this man set his brother up. But his brother's like, I didn't do nothing. What are you talking about? I didn't set anybody up. He's like, listen to me. When you tell me that, when you tell me that you didn't actually work with anyone to do this, you're insulting my intelligence. That doesn't make me feel good. So listen, I'm going to ask you again. It's just calm, but he's saying, listen, I'm not effing stupid, you idiot. It's like, that's what he's, it's like, that's what's underneath this. But he's going, look, you insulted my intelligence. Now, let me just ask you, and I don't like the way that feels. It doesn't make me feel good. It makes me feel bad. Listen, let me talk to you for a second. Who were you working with? Just tell me who you're working with.
I already know. I know.
And remember this too, when he does the plan, he says the plan, he's like, okay, we're going to get you on a flight to blah, 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 blah. Okay, you're good. You're out of the family. Goodbye. Carlos tries to approach him in this like, look, man, I'm sorry kind of thing. And he goes, get out of my sight. He like literally like that's the most he kind of
because
it's just so good.
It's like the thing about the Don is like we see the Don put things into motion, but we got to see Michael shoot. It's like Michael don't just got shooters; he is a shooter. Like he is cold blooded. Like that's the thing. Like when you hear that Sonny dies and Michael gets informed, you're like, oh, y'all better hope Michael don't come back because we know Michael's dangerous.
Yeah. Well,
we know
that's because you see the Don when later on in life.
That's true.
If you watch part 2.
Oh, it's one of those.
Watch part 2. Okay, we gotta watch part 2. But yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, Sonny, he likes to beat people up, and he's the mean guy. He's like at the very beginning of the movie, he's the one who confronts the guys writing down license plates outside of the wedding, and he's like smashing the dude's camera. That was actually a really savage moment because he grabs the dude's camera, throws it on the ground, and just takes out a wad of cash and throws money on the ground in front of him to pay for the camera.
Yeah, he's like, here, buy yourself a new one. Get out of my face.
I'm like, bro, that is so disrespectful. I want to do that to so many people.
I know. know. I was like, I wish I could do that.
I know. But like,
I can't do either.
but it's like, yeah, but it's like Michael, man, it's like, again, it's this before and after. It's like, you know, when Michael shows up to the hospital even, and he's pretending that he has a gun, he's the only one there to protect his father because everyone else was sent away, and like they were setting him up to try and come after his dad while he was, you know, incapacitated in the hospital. It's like, he has to step up and be brave and be bold and be whatever. So it's like, this is a dangerous guy. Like, you don't want to mess with him. So even in this scene, it's like I think it's done so well, because when you get to that point where he's talking to Mo Green in the casino, or when he's talking to Carlos at the end of the movie, I'm actually scared for these people. You know, because I'm like, it's not just that he's probably can set you up, but he is also a dangerous person himself. He might shoot you himself, you know what I'm saying, before he'll let you disrespect him like that. You know what I'm saying? So it's a very, very well put together character of this arc, and to be able to establish that tone that they want for him by the end of the movie.
For sure.
But you say you want to talk about that scene with his wife.
The clip thing is what I wanted to mention, because I was like, his entire they set up Al Pacino's mic for the movie. They were like, okay, we know the levels for him, we're good. And then this episode, and then during this scene, they're like, you're clipping, yeah. Because again, he's very calm, calculated, doesn't reveal anything. And then in this scene, his sister storms in. She's like, "You killed my husband. How dare you? I can't believe you would do this, blah, 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 blah." She's just freaking out, you know, rightfully so. She finds out her husband has died. Now, we talked about this in Love Lies Bleeding. This is just the dynamic of some abusive relationships where it's almost like Stockholm Syndrome. Like they are literally better off without them, but they just can't help but imagine a life without him anyways. So it's really sad to see his sister in this state, because it's like, you have no idea how much of a favor was just done to you. But
yeah,
at the same time, it's like, I get it, like whatever. But she's just like, "You killed my husband, I can't believe you did this." And his wife is in the room, and his wife is like, "Is it true? Is it true? Michael, is it true? Did that really happen? Michael, is it true? Is it true? Is it true? Hey, here's a hint. If he didn't answer you the first 3 goddamn times, sorry.
It's true.
Oh my God, I was the first one to cuss. Oh, where's the...
I'm doing the best at this.
I deserve a sad horn for that. Oh, man.
Brother, this guy stinks.
I'm getting assaulted by the soundboard. Rightfully so. I lose. But it's just like, stop asking. Stop. And I understand her perspective as well of, you never let me in on any of this stuff. Just give me something. Like, I'm your wife, for God's sakes. But at the same time, stop acting naive. Right. Stop acting like, wait a minute, are you a mobster?
Wait, you got someone killed?
You got someone killed? Wait, what?
He told you this like as soon as he got back from America. At his sister's wedding, he was like, "Yeah, my dad kills people and threatens to kill people for a living."
Stop acting naive. Stop acting like you don't know why you live in a 500 gazillion square foot house. Stop.
Yeah.
Stop.
And also, if you are so appalled by this, then don't ask. Don't ask questions that you don't want to know the answer to.
I like this because he snaps, he clips. The audio actually does clip. I mean, it's really intense.
Yeah.
It's awesome. And then he catches himself. He kind of catches himself. He goes, look, this I don't talk business with you, and I never will. But this one time I'll talk business. Now go ahead, ask me. What do you want to know? And she's like, "Is it true?"
And when she's asking, is it true that you killed Carlos?
Is it true? Did you kill your sister's husband? And it's just this long pause of him looking at her, and he just softly says, "No."
And she's like, "I knew it wasn't
and
true."
She's like, "Oh, thank God." And she's like crying. But here's the thing. Not only is it doesn't matter if he says yes or no. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, like, ultimately. But also, technically, that is correct. He did not kill Carlos. He did
just
not kill
like
Carlos.
just like the Don did not broker peas, and he did not go up for vengeance.
Yep, no.
It's just like it's the same bull crap logic that he's using for everything else.
We saw who strangled Carlos. It wasn't Michael.
It wasn't Michael. In fact,
Michael didn't kill
Michael
him.
booked him a plane ticket. He was
sure
going to send
did.
him to Vegas.
Yeah.
I have no idea what happened to Carlos.
It's sad what happened. I mean, it really is sad.
It is really the be ashamed if something would have happened to him. You know, kind of mobster
So
trope.
It's just such an intense way to end this, because this final shot of looking through the doorway and seeing Michael and thinking, the scene breathes enough. It has enough time spent on this shot for me to cycle in my mind seeing him in the start of this movie, going to Broadway shows and hanging out in New York with his girlfriend, and I'm not even in that life, to now he is a stone cold actual leader of this family. Like it is.
And then to contrast that scene with
like a painting.
immediately
It's
the
art.
last shot of her staring into the room as people are coming in and kissing his ring like they do for his father to show respect, and it's just like, again, like your naivete, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think there was like, he even called her out for that because, you know, he when he tries to get her back in his life, he says, he's like, you know, she's like, well, your father is a dangerous person, you know, whatever. He's like, well, my father is just like any other powerful man, like any other leader in this world. And she's like, I'm pretty sure that politicians and senators don't get people killed. And he goes, now who's being naive? Yeah. I was like, yeah, I mean, he kind of got, he's
straight
like,
up.
He's like, you think that all these people aren't just the same person that my dad is? Of course they are.
Everyone's hands are dirty.
Exactly.
Stop. Yeah.
And we know this firsthand, you know, we're the reason that it is to a certain degree. So it was very like, I think that scene was very contrasted with this scene of her just being kind of naive, and then him kind of just being like, oh, I'm not like anybody bad. I'm not, you know, kind of justifying his position in this whole family thing, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, all in all, from beginning to end, this movie is enthralling. It is a masterclass of filmmaking. I am proud to tell people that my mom's favorite movie is The Godfather. When they ask the two guys who record movies, hey, the person who raised you, what's their movie taste like? I'm like, well, her favorite movie is The Godfather. She loved The Sopranos. She introduced us to Game of Thrones. She was a big SOA fan.
Yeah,
it's just like her taste is on point.
Yeah, I've mentioned this on the pod too. Like one of my top 5 favorite shows of all time is High Maintenance, which that was mom. Mom was like, hey, I think you would like this show. Like mom doesn't recommend 98% of what she sees. She literally goes, hey, David, I think you would like this show. Hey, Daniel, I think you would like this. She's one of the best curators I've ever seen in my life. Because she doesn't recommend it unless she actually has an inkling like, hey.
And this was one that she said, you know what? The whole family needs to watch this movie.
Yeah, so, and she was spot on.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I finally.
So thank you, Mom. Happy Mother's Day. I hope,
You're welcome.
I hope that you're happy that we finally saw it, and I hope that you are happy that we did enjoy it as much as we did.
Yes. It was very enjoyable to watch it, like I said, all of us together, and for y'all to enjoy it in your own ways. That's the other thing. I kind of wish Danielle was here, to be honest, like talking with us. But
yeah, hearing what she kind of thought of everything. Yeah.
Because her thoughts are going to be different than yours, you know, because like I said, we just watched movies differently, but even to see her enjoy it, you know, it was a good time.
For sure. I agree.
Yeah. And we got to do this more often, guys. We got to get together more often.
Yeah, we need more family movie nights for sure.
For sure.
You mean more family nights where I pick the movie?
Yes. Yeah. More family nights curated by Mom. But for the Mother's Day special, this was a very special movie to go see. This movie all about family and
it's Mother's Day and family.
Family movie.
Watch a mobster movie.
Like a mobster movie, and the blood, the violence, the gore, all so great.
Crime,
I love
also the love and family and loyalty and even some humor and
yeah, very true. But yeah, very grateful to have this experience. It's definitely going to inspire me to want to watch more of the Godfather movies. It's also it is a push for me to finally get to The Sopranos, which, by the way, part of the reason I couldn't ever watch is I started watching the first episode and they go to beat someone up and it's like whoosh, whoosh, whoosh is the sound effects, and I was like, maybe they should remaster this one too. But with that said, I am very grateful for this, and I am going to give this movie a 10 out of 10.
That's not your actual score, is it?
It's 9 out of 10. I can't do it. I haven't seen every movie. I can't give anything a 10.
Mine's definitely a 9. It's a 9 out of 10.
But I can't give this movie the same score as Dune Part 2.
Look,
okay, Dune Part 2 is now an 8. The Godfather's a 9.
Official rescore.
Official rescore.
This one has to at least be a 9, if not higher. I have to dock points for the Sonny not actually landing his punches and it looking extremely fake. I also am not a big fan of like bleeding screen wipes, which they do a lot in this, which was just how they did movies back then, and that was a trend. I also think that the wedding scene was a little too long, and it was kind of the most like.
I didn't realize the first like 20
boring
minutes of the movie was the wedding scene.
At the same time, I can see the necessity of a lot of it because it's what puts you into this family, and now you feel like you understand and know the family. So it's like I don't know how to fix it, but I definitely do think it was like a little too long. So
maybe cut the karaoke scene out,
maybe, or shorten them a little bit. But just.
So a 9.99.
Sure, yeah. It has to at least be a 9, and it's just not a perfect movie, so it can't be a 10, but it's like, I mean, this is a masterpiece. I mean, I'm like, it makes me want to act, it makes me want to make movies, like it's just like,
oh yeah, in case I didn't mention this.
Makes me want to eat meatballs.
Makes me want to eat meatballs.
Yeah, because we didn't mention this already, my favorite scene in the movie is the diner scene, and my least favorite scene in the movie was Sonny beating up Carlos. So just forgot to mention that part before the score. Normally, it's not the structure of the podcast. Yeah,
and I already mentioned mine is the baptism scene is my favorite. My least favorite scene is probably some point during the wedding. Because even the Sonny scene, even though it looked bad, it was still a good scene of just seeing someone get beat up in the street. So still a really cool scene. It's just the choreography of the fighting was just not good. So.
All right, Mom, your score and your favorite part and least favorite part.
10 out of 10.
Ding, 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 ding.
My favorite scene, I mean, yeah, it probably did have to be the diner, but also, like you said earlier, whenever Tom tells the Don that Sonny died, I mean, his emotion and reaction to that was just perfect.
Top notch.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And my least favorite scene, I mean, any scene where the baby was crying.
All right.
Yeah, that's fair.
Fair enough.
That is fair.
The baby didn't need to be crying when they was on the phone. Like, there's no way you could hear the other person on the other line.
That is true. You guys can get involved in the conversation. Let us know what you think of The Godfather. Is it one of the greatest movies ever made? Is it overrated? If you say the latter, you're wrong. And...
You're just saying what I've been saying for so long.
Yeah. And honestly, we've been saying what everyone has been saying.
That's a family message to you, from our family to yours. You're wrong if you think it's overrated.
Or
if you think you don't need to see it, because you do.
Because you do. You really do. Next week, we will be back with some fresh takes on some latest movies. But until then, thank you for listening. We love you. We kiss you. Good night.